So before I begin, just a quick note. I see I'm wearing a white shirt. I have a wedding. I have to be there on time, so we'll finish relatively early today. So maybe it'd be better. I won't speak faster because I'm speaking too fast as it is. But I'll just give you the summary of the share instead of the whole share, which is easier to follow. Okay, so let me share my screen and we'll get to work. Okay, today's class number 5 in our series. And hold on a second.
Rabbi, I don't know if it's only me, but your sound's a little garbled.
Bad. Okay, let me try to speak real fast.
Yeah. It wasn't just me.
How about now? Is this better?
I think so. Yeah.
That's better?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. Because I'm talking from my daughter's house and my thing's not opening. I'll share my screen in a second. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So class number 5, before after the sin of the golden calf, when was the commandment to build the Mishkan? Okay. So everyone knows that Parshat Truma and Tetzav is before Kitisa, and the commandment to build the Mishkan is in Truma, and the story of the golden calf is in Kitisa. But most of you learned probably since kindergarten that the Mishkan was sort of commanded after the golden calf, and the Mishkan's coming sort of to fix the sin of the golden calf. So Ramban, of course, keeps Chumash in order, claims the commandment to build the Mishkan was before. Rashi and most other commentators, especially in Chazal and Midrash, claim the Mishkan was after Chet HaEgel. And we're going to give the logic of both opinions, and we're going to try and show this week why they're both right. But the main thing I want to show you, assuming they're both right, and chronologically, the Mishkan was commanded after the sin of the golden calf, you have to give a good reason why Chumash is out of order. Okay.
Rabbi, the sound is still not
still
great.
bad. Let me try one other. Let me try one other microphone. 1 second. Okay, I have 3 different settings for microphone here. About this one now. Testing 1, 2, 3. Any better?
Better. You're very dark baritone voice, but yes, it's much.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. If it goes bad, let me know again, and I'll switch it again. I'm not sure which one goes to my headphones. I can't figure out that. Okay, let's get started again then. So the first thing we're going to do, I'll explain what we're going to do. I'm going to explain why it makes sense that Chumash is in order. I'm going to follow Ramban, and because Ramban, you can't argue. His logic is perfectly logical. Makes a lot of sense that Mishkan is the continue Har Sinai. Basically, in a nutshell, Ramban wants to claim that we never leave Har Sinai, we take it with us. And no matter what would have happened at the in the desert, we would have needed a Mishkan no matter what. And we'll see afterwards, there's so many parallels between the Mishkan and the sin of the golden calf. It just can't be that commandment was given before the golden calf. It's just too many coincidences that are similar. So we're going to get to work, and here we go. Okay, I'm going to begin with the famous Ramban on the beginning to Truma. It says as follows: the Sod HaMishkan means the secret of the. Maybe he's talking as a Kabbalist. The secret of the main point of the Mishkan is Shia Kavod Asher Shechan Alav Har Sinai, Shochen Alav V'Nistar. The same glory of God, which was Nigle, which was obvious to everybody at Har Sinai, will now be hidden, but there. In other words, as a Kabbalist, everyone could see and understand and felt the presence of God at Mount Sinai because it was Nigle. He revealed himself. We want to stay at that level, and therefore, even though God is never so obvious to us, like he was at Har Sinai, we want to have that same feeling, which he calls Nistar, and therefore we're going to make a symbol of Har Sinai called the Mishkan. And when we visit the Mishkan, we're going to recreate the understanding of the Har Sinai experience. Okay, so that was one. Now we'll see how he proves it in a minute. The same Kvod Hashem, the same glory of God that was with us at Har Sinai remains with us in the Mishkan. So basically, we never leave the Mishkan. We never leave Har Sinai. We take it with us. The analogy I give students in yeshiva is: you never leave yeshiva. You take yeshiva with you. You have one experience during the year, and then you take that with you the rest of your life. Okay, now I want to bring just a couple anchors of that approach. One is in the Mishkan. You remember from the last couple of weeks, there are 3 basic areas. there's the Kodesh Kodeshim, where the Aron is, with the Luchot, with the Ark of the Covenant, and the tablets, and that's like the Holy of Holies. And then we have the Kodesh, which has the menorah and the Shulchan, and the Torah. And then we have the Chatzer, the courtyard, which has the altar. Now, if you remember at Har Sinai, the people were able to bring sacrifices at the foot of the mountain. They were never allowed on the mountain, but they could be at the foot of the mountain bringing sacrifices. See? The Kohanim came up the mountain and bowed down from a distance, and Moshe went all the way to the top of the mountain. So if I take that analogy, the top of the mountain, the Moshe receiving the Luchot and Har Sinai, therefore in the Kodesh Kodeshim are the Luchot, or the tablets. The Kohanim who come up the mountain and bow down from a distance were able to see God. That's the Kohanim who enter the Kodesh, who enter the light of the Menorah and Shulchan. And the people who are Tahor, who are clean, can come to the Mishkan, to the Chatzer, the courtyard of the Mishkan, and bring sacrifices, but they can't go into the Kodesh or the Kodesh Kodeshim. So these three groups we had at Har Sinai. Remember in chapter 18, in chapter 19, sorry, God tells Moshe, "Reid ha'ed ba'am, go warn the people. 10 years Hashem nirot v'nafam menorah." They have to keep their distance because they can't look. And even the Kohanim who come closer to God, they have to be careful. So Moshe himself goes up, but the people can't come up at all, and the Kohanim who come closer have to be extra careful. And that parallels what happens in chapter 24, when God told Moshe Rabbeinu, come up the mountain, you, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, and the 70 elders, most likely those are the Kohanim. And then Moshe afterwards would go by himself to the mountain, and the elders would not go with him, and the people didn't go up at all. So the three groups, the people, the Kohanim, and Moshe, can be the Kohen Gadol, the Kohanim, and the Am, or the Chatzer of the Mishkan, with the Mizbeach HaChitzon, with the outside Mizbeach, where they bring sacrifices, the Kodesh, with the Menorah and Shulchan, and the Kodesh Kodeshim with the Aron, where only the Kohen Gadol goes on Yom Kippur. Now, we're going to come back to this picture a lot, but this picture is going to be key to understanding everything. Let me annotate real fast. In chapters 19 through 24, that's basically Parshot Yitro and Mishpatim. That's the story of Mamad Har Sinai, of the Torah being given, the laws and the covenant, etc. The commandment to build the Mishkan is Trumat Tzaveh. And the story of Chet Egel was in Parshat Kitisa over here. That's Chet Egel. Now, if I keep Chumash in order, the Torah is given, and then we go to the story of the commandment to build the Mishkan, followed by Chet Egel. What Chazal are going to say is that first we have Har Sinai, and then the story chronologically Chet Egel happens, and only after Chet Egel we get the commandment to build the Mishkan. And this whole unit here, according to Chazal, is out of order. We have to see why. First, we're going to show how it doesn't make any sense, and then we'll see why it makes perfect sense. Now, let's close this up, clear the drawings, and continue. And come back to my notes. Okay. Now, one last parallel that the Rambam brings down, which is the anchors, is Pirush's commentary with these. The closing lines of Sefer Shemot, in chapter 40, when the Shekhinah rests on the Mishkan, are extremely parallel to when the story of Moshe going up to Har Sinai to receive the Luchot on the first 40 days. And in the end of Parshat Mishpatim, in chapter 24, Moshe goes up the mountain by Chasanat et Ahar, by Hashem Har Sinai. At the end of Sefer Shemot, when the Mishkan is finally put together, by Chasanat et Ol Moed. So what replaces what? Like super obvious now. Put the markers on real fast. Where is my draw? Okay. Actually, use this one better. The Vachasanan at the Har switches Ol Moed, and Kvod Hashem and Har Sinai, Kvod Hashem Malei et HaMishkan. And the same thing here, Kvod Hashem Malei et HaMishkan. So basically, you see from the end of the book, the Mishkan has replaced Har Sinai. And that's why Ramban explains, if I go back to the drawing, above, why is it that the laws of building the Mishkan come immediately after Mamad Har Sinai when Moshe goes up for 40 days? Because Moshe goes up to continue the Torah being given. The Torah was given on Har Sinai. You want to continue receiving the Torah, so I built the Mishkan, and from the Mishkan, God will continue talking to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, Now we'll take the flip side. Let me just show you one more thing. I'm gonna undo my share. Let's stop the share for a second. I want to open up a regular Chumash real fast and show you. We want this one. We want a regular Chumash. 1 second. But here, in chapter 24, no, that's one here, chapter 24. At the end of chapter 24, Moshe goes into the Anan. Moshe is there for 40 days and 40 nights. The first line of chapter 25 is God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Bnei Israel, take Trumah and basically build a Mishkan. And all chapters 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31 all deal with the Mishkan and only the Mishkan. So if I follow, go back to our drawing. If I follow Chumash and this drawing over here, it makes perfect sense. Moshe goes up here, Har Sinai, to receive the Luchot. And the first thing God tells him is how to build the edifice that's going to house the Luchot and going to continue the experience of Har Sinai. And therefore, the only thing we find now is the laws to build the Mishkan. While Moshe is getting those laws, the people still want the golden calf. Now we're going to see the story of the golden calf and try to understand why there's too many similarities between the golden calf story and the Mishkan, that it can't be by chance that the Chet of the Mishkan happened after or while the laws of the Mishkan were being given. So let's clear all the drawings and go back to our source sheet. Actually, I'm going to have a little discussion. I want someone to explain to me, why do people think that Moshe is not coming back? I'll just ask a simple question. Moshe goes up into a ball of fire. You saw that. He goes up, with the Yeshua, but without having stomach supplies, without any food. Now, are they going to wait 500 years till he comes down? That's too far, right? Are they going to wait a year? I don't think so. Are they going to wait a week? Okay, wait a week.
There was a
week. Yeah. Go ahead.
There was a leadership vacuum in that Moses, when he went up for the week, didn't appoint somebody to be the caretaker, leader, or government. So there was a leadership vacuum, and anytime you have a leadership vacuum, you have problems.
It could be, but if you look carefully, I think it's almost the opposite. I mean, he leaves babysitters, if I want to use that analogy.
But Joshua didn't stay with the people. He stayed on the mountain. He wasn't with the people.
Yeah, here. But let's take a look at chapter 24. When Moshe goes up the mountain, God tells Moshe, Aleah, come up the mountain, stay there. I'm going to give you the Chot Even and the Torah and the Mitzvah. Moshe goes up with Yeshua. Velatzkinim. Moshe told the elders, the leaders of the tribe, stay here until I come back. Aaron Nechor are with you. If you have any questions, I call the babysitters because they deal with the immediate problems. They're not going to speak. They're not going to make life decisions for them, but they're going to take care of problems until the parents come back, until Moshe comes back. Now, before I get to the leadership issue, I want to deal with a different issue. The key issue here is that as a nation, forget the leadership for a minute, as a nation, assuming Moshe is not coming back, and there's lots of reasons. Again, Moshe goes up the mountain. The people see Moshe goes into a ball of fire. Moshe goes into that Anan. That's the last time they see Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, if he doesn't come back, they wait a week, and 2 weeks, and 3 weeks. Sooner or later, they're going to reach one conclusion: he's not coming back. Now, of course, they need a leader, but before that, whoever the leader might be, they have 3 options. They can stay where they are, they can go back to Egypt, or they go to Israel. Correct? Now, going back to Egypt. Been there, done that? That's not the greatest option. Okay? Staying in the desert, what's the point? Boring. They're going to live in the desert forever. The most logical thing is to go to Israel, and that's what God promised. The problem is when you go to Israel, you have to conquer the land. And in my opinion, the key for understanding the story of Chet Egel is in God's promise before Moshe goes up for the first 40 days. In Parshat Mishpatim, God's promise to send them help to conquer the land. And we'll go back to our source sheet now. and take a look at it. Actually, let's do it in a regular Chumash. In chapter 23, starting in verse 20, God told the people the following. Remember, God speaking through Moshe to the people. God told the people, again, the day after Mount Sinai, before Moshe goes up for 40 days. I'm sending a malach, human or not human, we'll see, lefanecha, in front of you, to guard you on the way, and bring you, that's the land of Israel. Okay? Be careful, you better obey this malach. Don't rebel against them, because he won't, you can't carry away your sins, because my name is with him, meaning what he says is what I say. If you listen to him, and hence do what I say to do, okay, then your enemies will be my enemies, and your adversaries will be mine. And the most important line, my malach will lead the way, and bring you to the land of the seven nations, and I'll help you destroy them. Means God promised military help to help them conquer the land. Now, who did they assume that malach would be? The best candidate would be Moshe Rabbeinu, because he speaks on behalf of God, he led them before, and they're assuming Moshe will come down and he'll lead them to Israel, and just like Moshe in a miraculous way defeated the Egyptians, the same thing will happen conquering Israel. But if Moshe is not coming back, they need not just a replacement for Moshe, they need a replacement to win the battle. Now, someone tell me, has Am Yisrael ever fought a war before?
Amalek.
With Amalek. Yeah, with Amalek. That's the only fought for them they fought. Now, was there a symbol of God leading them in battle in Amalek? Let's take a look at the Sukim.
Moshe's hands going up.
Moshe's hands in the air.
But what was in Moshe's hands?
A staff?
And what was the name? What was that staff called?
Matei Elokim.
That's right. Let's take a look real fast. There we go. What did Moshe have here? Moshe by Amalek. Moshe tells Yeshua, choose some men. I'll be on top of the mountain. Remember the name? Amate Elohim. And then they went to war. And when Moshe's hands were up, they were winning. And when his hands were low, they were losing. And therefore, like any army, like it could be someone holding a flag or an emblem, whatever it might be, the people rallied by this Mate Elohim. And what they saw is when you looked at this Mate Elohim, it helped us win. Now, we don't have Moshe, we don't have a Mate Elohim. But don't be surprised. What did the people ask from Aaron now? Okay. We'll just read the psukim in the people see that Moshe is not coming down from the mountain. They gather on Aaron because Aaron's their babysitter. He was left in charge. This is what they ask for. They don't ask for another God. You see that? They're not asking for a God. They're asking for some power that will lead them to conquer the land. Why? Because who was that power supposed to be? Moshe. He said Moshe Ish. Now Moshe is Mr. Mortal. Okay? Who took us out of Egypt. We don't know what happened to him. We need a replacement for Moshe, but not Moshe. We have Moshe, the miracle worker. Moshe is going to help us win our wars. Now, Aaron doesn't say to wait another day or two. It seems like everything here is Aaron's idea. Aaron goes along with him. He says, okay, let's make some symbol of God, something simple that I can hold up. They'll lead us in battle. Just give me your gold. They take the gold, they bring it to Aaron. Okay. By Kach Adam, that's Aaron. Aaron puts it into a mold. By Astehu, Egel Mastecha. Aaron makes the Egel. In simple pshat, it's all his idea. When the people see the Egel, what do the people say? Now, they can't mean that this Egel took them out of Egypt, because they just said beforehand that Moshe took them out of Egypt. But the same Moshe took them out of Egypt, who was the leader, is now being replaced by this Egel, who's going to lead them in battle. My point is that they want a symbol of God's military system. And they need something magical that help them conquer the land. Now, Aaron wants to make sure that they understand that this is the symbol of God, that God took them out of Egypt. Therefore, Aaron says, let's build an altar in front of it, and he's back in front of the Egel. He says there'll be a celebration for God tomorrow, Hashem. There's no doubt Aaron believes in God. it's clear that Aaron's saying that this egel is a symbol of your connection to God. And therefore, it's not idol worship in the classic sense of disturbing an idol. That's only Ramban and Rabbi Yehuda Levi's explanation, right, up to this point. And they get up in the morning, they bring a lot of shlamim, because it's a Chag Lashem. And the main difference between that and Har Sinai is by Kuma L'Sachek, that all the Parshanim, something goes wild. Now, if I go back to chapter 24 in Har Sinai, we have almost the same thing a month earlier when they said Nasa V'Nishma, when they accepted the Brit at Har Sinai. Moshe wrote down all the words of God. He put up 12 monuments representing Am Yisrael's connection to God. He sent the young men of Israel. They brought olot and shlamim. There was korbanot and a feast. Okay? And there was a rabbi's speech and a ceremony. They said Nasa V'Nishma. And then Moshe and Aaron and Nadav and Avihu, they go up. 70 elders go up. They see the God of Israel, but they see the bottom of his feet. And the bottom of his feet was the shiniest thing you could see. And whether it was okay or not, you could argue, but they see, and by Yachul Vayishtu, they drink. The korbanot that all the Parshim explain. I mean, everything seems to be fine here. And what Chitzkuni points out beautifully is that this group, this leadership group, saw the bottom of God's feet. And if you open up the book of Yechezkel real fast, if you remember what we read on Shavuos morning, Yechezkel has a vision of God's chariot. And God's chariot is a really complicated vision, but it's got 4 faces. So there's on this chariot, but these 4 chariots shaped representing God had 4 faces, but the bottom of the feet was like the bottom of the foot of an egel, but very, very shiny, like burnished brass. So therefore, it could be when this leadership group saw God with a vision, whatever it means, they saw the bottom of God's feet, but according to Chazkiah, the bottom of God's feet looked like the feet of an egel. That might have been the reason why they made Dafka an egel to represent God. That's the Chizkuni's explanation. In my opinion, though, there's a much there was all the Parshim say by Kuman Letzachek was the problem. That they got a little bit too wild. If you look what God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, and you look at the parallels beforehand, what does God tell Moshe? After they sin with the golden calf, after Vaikul Letzachek, what's God tell Moshe? Dabra Moshe, Lechred ki shechet tamcha. Where have we had the word shechet before? Where have we had shechet in Chumash beforehand?
Sdom.
Before Sdom.
The flood.
The flood, remember? And God says that there's hashchata, which according to everybody, it's iniquity. It's terrible behavior. It's crime. Now, that's number one. That's not idol worship. That's simply wild behavior. Now, number two, what else did they do wrong? Now, what was the derech that God commanded? If you remember, I want to go back to this pasuk. If you remember Reshit, chapter 18, what was the derech that God commanded? Remember good old 18:18?
Tzedek
Why
and
did God pick us? Okay, Abraham, we be blessing. We're commanded to command our children. Okay? To do tzedek mishpat. So saru meher min derech asher tivitiv, the derech that God was mitzaveh us is doing tzedek mishpat.
I would
So
say
that's it's a behavioral problem, and on top of that, they did the egel. And what's the problem with the egel? Now I'm sorry, got that. You share. What's the problem with the egel? I'm sorry, let's go back to the Chumash. Okay. What did they do? The egel to them, and this is what I want to suggest, the egel to them was not a symbol of how they have to serve God, it was a symbol of God's going to work for them. Okay? Because they're bound down to the egel and not to the relationship that it's supposed to represent. I don't know meant well, but to them, the egel was like a thing or a magical power that can help them win their wars. If you remember the story later in Sefer Shmuel, when Bnei Eli Chofni and Pinchas, decided to take the Aron to battle, hoping to defeat the Plishtim, but the Kohanim were all corrupt. So why is God going to help them if their behavior is corrupt? And therefore, no symbol of God, no matter how logical the symbol is, if the people don't understand the responsibility of being God's people, then the symbol of God won't help them. So they're all excited about this magical egel that's going to help them win their battle, but they don't see the egel as a symbol of their commitment to God. I'll give two analogies, and then for what does God see because of their behavior? God realizes that they're not ready yet to be God's people. They can't change them. I'm sure stiff-thinking people can't change their ways, and basically they're not teachable. I can't train them. God says, let me make a nation out of people like Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe, of course, servants. I'm not going to do that whole share of Torah. We'll do that a little bit next week. Now, I want to use two analogies to explain what they did wrong. One is they reverted back to their Egyptian culture. And God basically says, there's no point in bringing you to the land if you're not ready yet to be my people. And this whole incident showed God they're not ready yet. Then there's a need for another break. Let's see, God has to be more forgiving. But let me give you a new example, which some of you will understand, some of you won't. I'm going to weddings soon, but hopefully it won't be like that one. I call the two dances at the wedding. The most modern, my kind of weddings I go to, including my own children. The first dance, there's a mechitza, there's rabbis there, all the music is totally Jewish, right? It's all fine. Yeah. By the second dance, when the wedding's over, and only the young people are left behind, there's no more mechitza. The music is what we call goyish. Not every wedding, but I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding like that. But the last dance is quite different than the first one. And it's simply not a question of bad or good or bad. I'm saying it reflects the culture of the people who come to the wedding. But when Moshe's around and Aaron's around, the behavior is fine. The second the rabbis leave, the other for yeshiva guys is called Ben Azmanim. Ben Azmanim therapy. When you're in yeshiva, surrounded by rabbim, you behave fine. The second the rabbis are gone, how do the kids behave? And that's the final test whether you've been educated properly or not. Again, don't get around. I'm not complaining about weddings, they're fine. I'm just giving an example of how people's culture, you can test them, how they behave when they're not being watched anymore, when the rabbinic authority is not around. And what does God see? God's leading Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai for those 40 days. Now, because we're going to run out of time in a minute, let me get to my key point. That's the Shemachet Egel. I don't want to do too much in detail. All I'm saying is that the reason I'm talking about this military symbol of our connection to God, help us win our wars, and this malach is in the background, because bottom line, the Mishkan becomes the kosher egel. Because what do we build the Mishkan? We build the Mishkan, the Aron is going to be our symbol of God, made out of the gold the people collected. And if you remember what we said when we take the Torah out, in the end of Parsha Balota, let's go right to Sefer Bamidbar real fast. Chapter 10. On the source sheet also, but just remember good old chapter 10. We're ready to travel on the way to conquer Israel. And what did it say? Vaistumi har Hashem, the road Brit Hashem leads the way. Vanan Hashem is on top of them. Vaibit Sol Aron, Moshe Kuma Hashem. Hashem is referring to the Aron. When the Aron would travel, representing God, Moshe would say, "Go up." He's referring to the Aron. God, stand up in front of us, and let our enemies, your enemies, let them scatter, okay, and let them run away, right, from you. In other words, and when the Aron would come to rest, said rest from the thousands of the families of Israel. Basically, remember when they take Yericho, the Aron leads them in battle. When they cross the Jordan, the Aron leads them in battle. So basically, the Aron becomes a kosher egel. But the symbol of God is a symbol of our connection to God, yeah? And our covenant with God. And God saying, if you follow my laws, there's a reason for God to help you conquer the land. To conquer a land and set up a corrupt country, there's no value in being God's people in a land if your country is corrupt and unjust and not representing God properly. So God promises to help you win your battles, so you have to be worthy of that. Now, I want one other analogy. Instead of weddings, I'll go to shul. Okay? I I call the Chet Ego the first Kiddush club. Okay? In chapter 24, which is the same story, right? There's a Mizbeach in front of a symbol of God, and there's a Lot Shlamim. But in chapter 24, Moshe reads the laws first. There's Kriyas HaTorah. And there's a Torah, and there's the rabbi's speech. And then there's the Kiddush. Follow? In Chet Ego, there's no Torah, there's no Kiddush. You follow? I mean, there's no learning, there's no teaching, no rabbi speech. It's only a Kiddush. There's a Lot Shlamim and a celebration. So basically, it's coming to shul for Kiddush, but not for the rabbi's speech in Kriyas HaTorah. Kriyas HaTorah is, Kiddush is fine if it's after davening, reading the Torah and the rabbi's speech. But by itself, if you're just coming to shul for the drinking and the celebration and not the commitment to be God's people, that's at the root of the problem. And hence, what I call idol worship, idol more ideally than IDOL, but it's idol worship in the sense, it's not believing in a different God, it's having the wrong relationship with God. The idea that God's working for you instead of you working for God. That's the whole theme in how the Dean see idol worship later on. Now we can get to our topic because we finish in a couple of minutes. Let's go back to our source sheet. I'll give you my book. One last thing. I want to show you that Aaron didn't do anything wrong, at least according to Sefer Shemot. What does Moshe tell Aaron? Moshe doesn't ask Aaron, how come you sinned? Moshe asks Aaron, go back to Shemot, when they come down, Yeshua hears the people, it sounds like there's a war going on. And Moshe tells them that's not war, but that's simply loud noise. He sees the, what do you call it? He sees the ego and the macholot and the dancing around it. And he breaks the ego, he breaks the macholot, I'm sorry. And then what does he tell Aaron? He says, Vayimar Moshe el Aaron, Ma asar lachem hazeh ki hebeit elav chatat golah. Moshe didn't say, Aaron, what did you do wrong? He said, what did you do that caused the people to do the sin? Why did you cause them to sin? He didn't say, Aaron, you sinned. What did you do that caused them to sin? And Aaron basically blames it on Moshe. He says, first of all, don't get angry at me. You know these people, they're bad. You've been their counselors the whole last year. They're bad people. They've been bad since we left Egypt, before we left Egypt. And they asked me, what do you call it? To make it some power, like this is the story. Why? Because you didn't come back. It's your fault. You didn't come back. I had to do something. I asked them for the gold and the ego came out. And then what's Moshe say? Paru means wild. Who got them wild? Paro caused them to get wild. Aaron meant well, but it came to the disgrace in the eyes of their enemies. But see the word Paro hiding in Paro? They returned to the Egyptian culture. Now, Moshe finds the troublemakers, the people who spike drinks and caused the party to get wild. They're punished, small percentage. And the rest of the people need, that's already the story of Bidot Rachamim. Now we go to my conclusion. Why Chumash is out of order. But what I'm getting at, there are so many good connections between the story of Chet Ego and the Mishkan. The fact that the Mishkan is collecting gold from the people, and making a symbol of God that's going to lead them to conquer Israel and help them conquer the land. It just can't be that that's all happening by chance. Well, Moshe is getting a lot of our Mishkan. And that's why thematically it makes so much sense that the Mishkan is after the Ego. Not to mention, in the 7 days of Miluim, we bring a Parla Chatat. Why do we need a Chatat? Not just for the 7 days of Miluim. And the whole idea of Kapara. In the Mishkan, we have the Baktor that has Kapara and the Kior. There's a lot of elements of Kapara in the Mishkan. And Kapara makes sense after Chet Ego. Remember Moshe says, Dolei Kapara Bat Fatachem. What Yamidat Rachamim, God's attributes of mercy, it makes sense to have Kapara. So, assuming that then, the explanation by Chazal were right. That what the Mishkan is after Chet Ego. Then why is Chumash out of order? So now I'm going to give an answer which I think explains why everyone's right. Chronologically, Chazal were right. The Chumash is out of order. Chet Ego happened first. But I want to ask a question. What would have happened had we not sinned with Chet Ego? Basically, I would have had to remember our showing we did on Dvarim. We'd have the laws of Sefer Dvarim. that the laws of Sefer Devarim was, when does Moshe go up to get on the first 40 days? According to Sefer Devarim, on the first 40 days, Moshe gets the laws of Sefer Devarim. And the laws of Sefer Devarim precede the story of Chet Egel. Therefore, in Sefer Devarim, we have a permanent temple, not a temporary one. We have a Makom Hashem Kar Hashem, we have a Beit Elohim. Therefore, had it not been for Chet Egel, there'd be no need to stay in the desert. We could have gone, Moshe could have come down with the first Luchot, the original Luchot. We would have gone to Israel, captured in the 6 days, built a permanent temple for God, from Makom Hashem Kar Hashem, wherever that would be, hopefully Yerushalayim. And we'd have a permanent temple, not a portable one. Now that permanent temple would be a symbol of Har Sinai. It would have a Kodesh Kodeshim and a Kodesh and a Chatzer. It would have the same mechitzot, the same boundaries, and the same purposes of Mishkan. It would remain a symbol of Har Sinai, but it wouldn't need to be portable. What I want to claim is the need for a portable temple is because of Chet Egel, but not the need for a temple. The need for Mikdash is to be a symbol of Har Sinai, but the need for a portable Mikdash is because of Chet Egel. Now let's go back to our boxes and show you the whole setup. Where's my flow sheet? There we go. Okay. I want to claim as follows. Let's go back to my 4 boxes and you'll see exactly what I mean. Here we go, on 4 boxes. If I follow Chazal, then where's my there we go. And my arrow. If I follow Chazal chronologically, we go from here to here, correct? And then let me just move something. This box belongs here. So I go from Chet Egel, got it? And then I go to, first I have to start Chet Egel, then I have the commandment to build the Mishkan, and then we put the Mishkan together. Hope that makes sense? That's a great chronological order. But in Chumash bin chronological order, what wouldn't we notice? We wouldn't notice, let me change my color here. I wouldn't notice this beautiful connection between Mamad Har Sinai and the Mishkan. In other words, in the commandment to build the Mishkan, I have a Mikdash. The Mikdash of the Mishkan. The very Mikdash itself, with the Kodesh Kodeshim and the Kodesh and the Chatzer. That's going to be my reminder of the events of Har Sinai that we would need no matter what. Of course, we need a symbol, a physical symbol of the Sinai experience and our commitment to be God's people. But had Chumash been in chronological order, and had this been over here, then the reader wouldn't notice the obvious connection between Mamad Har Sinai and the Mishkan. So chronologically, Chazal were right, that the story of the Mishkan belongs over here. Let me just erase everything again. Okay. The story of the Mishkan belongs here, chronologically. But what did Chumash do? And had not been for Chet Egel, we would have built a temple. But because of Chet Egel, I need a portable Mishkan, which was commanded after Chet Egel. But to highlight the connection between the Mishkan, the Mikdash of the Mishkan, right? I moved this whole unit to here to highlight the connection between Mamad Har Sinai and the Mishkan. Got it? And that's what I'm trying to show you in the whole series. That's what I'm going to end with. Is my whole point is that when Chumash is out of chronological order, it's not just sloppy. There's always a thematic reason. And Chumash wants you to study, to figure out on your own what the chronological order should be, like all the Parshanim do. But then the question comes up, what's the thematic reason for being out of order? So basically, if I want to summarize it, chronologically, Rashi is correct that it happened after Chet Egel. But the reason why Chumash puts it here, thematically, is to support Ramban's thematic approach. Ramban's thematic approach that the Mishkan is a mini Har Sinai is 100% right. But to highlight that thematic approach, Chumash is out of chronological order and puts the Mishkan here. Yeah, Ruth, question?
So because of technological difficulties thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
we could say that they're not out of order, they're simultaneous, but there's no way of putting them side by side. It's like a choose your own adventure. It could have gone this way or that way, or you could say they are simultaneous. Moshe's getting the instructions for the Mishkan. Meanwhile, the perverted Mishkan or the bizarro Mishkan is being put together down at the bottom of the mountain. But you could go either way. So,
but yeah, I know what you're saying, but
you know what
I'm
I'm
saying
saying?
it could be when Moshe's on Har Sinai, he got the laws for sure of Sefer Dvarim, which talk about a Makom Hashem Char Hashem, a permanent temple. We don't know what that permanent temple would have looked like. Maybe it wouldn't have a Mizbach Torah. Maybe it wouldn't have a Korban Chatat. Maybe it wouldn't have 7 days of Miluim. Maybe it would be, but it would probably have Mechitzot. We don't know what it would look like. But the commandment that's in Truma Tetzaveh was clearly given on the second time, when he goes up the second time. It wasn't given simultaneously. There might have been a different Mikdash commandment, which we never found out about on the first 40 days, but it's never recorded. But the actual laws in Truma Tetzaveh are given on the second 40 days after the sin of Chet Egel, and they're affected with an A. They're affected by the story of Chet Egel.
If
yeah.
Chet Egel has never happened, if you just excise that whole section out, because it could possibly have not happened, then you would have complete.
You'd have a Mikdash without a Mishkan.
Well, maybe no. Maybe we're supposed to have a Mishkan, not a Mikdash.
No, but that's it. Why build something portable if you have something permanent? But the Mishkan is screening portability.
That's right.
Why? Now, if you're perfect people, you can't capture land in 6 days. Why build a portable building if I can build something permanent?
So that's another discussion.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so that's a question. If what do you call it? Had it not been for Chet Egel, we would have the Tzira would have come, got rid of everything, quick conquest. Of course, it never happened. Probably never would have happened because there had to be Chet Egel. But we'll talk about that next week. Nothing. Anyway, I have to finish because I kept going. Sorry, I don't have time to answer the questions today. Make sure there's nothing. Okay. Yeah, we started early because of okay. Okay. Very good. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here. Have a good week. Next week we might start a little bit later because I'll be speaking for the States next week. We might start 15 minutes later, but nothing major. We'll let you know. Next week we'll sort of continue this topic from a different angle about Moshe's prayer when Moshe davens by Cham Moshe, which we read right here. We'll see later. It makes a lot of sense that he davened after he breaks the egel, but that's be a lot of fun next week. Follow up. Okay, everyone have a good week, and Rabbi take over.
Okay.
Going up.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Somebody just commented, yes, we did start early this week, of course, because of daylight savings time for those who are in Israel. I guess here we started early too, just the time is the same. But in Israel, of course, the time isn't. Anyways, okay. But if you missed it, you missed it. Okay, please God, we'll see everybody soon. Tomorrow, of course, we're back with our 3 shiurim because we missed over Purim, all their shiurim. Monday, Tuesday, we missed 5 shiurim last week. So they're all back. Rachel Sharansky, Shuli Mishkin, Mark Shapiro, Moshe Sokolow, and Rabbi Shulman are all back this week. Please God. Rabbi Helfgott is not. Rabbi Helfgott will be away this week, Wednesday night, and we have our regular host of shiurim. We look forward to learning you. Please, and with you, please invite a friend. We will, please God, by the end of the week, send out our Pesach program. We have, I think, 9 or 10 shiurim confirmed already, and we'll let you know just to whet your appetite a little bit. That's what's coming up in a couple of weeks. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful week, a great day. Be well. We look forward to learning with you in the near future, and we should hear good things for the Jewish people. We need the Jewish people need our prayers. So let's pray for the unity of the people. It's very important time. So let's pray. We should all come together. Okay, be well, everybody. Bye-bye.
Amen. Thank you.